So let's take a look at our database. Uh, we need to create a database table, of course, for all of the resources. So for instance, for data set, we need a table. For publication, we need a table. So what we could do is write a lot of SQL code, creating those tables and that kind of stuff. But we don't like double work. So what we're using is an ORM, object relational mapping, named SQL model. With SQL model, we can just define them once. So for instance, I'm looking at data set here. Data set is actually a SQL model. So it is an AI asset. AI asset is a resource, and the resource is a SQL model. So SQL model, you can find it on the on internet. SQL model is created by Triangolo. It's the same creator as SQL Alchemy. It's built on top of SQL Alchemy and Pydantic, and we use this to create to write a class once. And when we created it, it's both a Pydantic class and a SQL Alchemy task class. So SQL Alchemy makes you sure that the database table is created. Pydantic makes sure that it's described nicely, so that we can also use it for our Swagger documentation. So things like an example in Swagger or the maximum length in Swagger is powered by Pydantic. SQL Alchemy makes sure that the tables are created. So you see a description here. It's a field. Field is a SQL model thing with a max length, an example, that kind of stuff. And once we created this, the database table will be created automatically. So let's take a look at the database. Let's open up a new new bash, new terminal, and let's go to the script. There's a test run database test script which just runs the SQL server. So let's run it. The database is called AIoD, and let's see what kind of tables are in there. So there's a lot of tables in there, from agent, AI assets to educational resource, and a lot of categories. So let's take a look at the data set. For instance, you see all those fields here. So those are actually generated because we created this Python class. So we have a description here with a max length of 5,000. We see that here as well. It's not nullable because it's just a string, and it's not a string or none, for instance. So that's all very nice. So this is very nice, actually. So this makes sure that we only have to create it once. So of course there are also relationships between the tables. So we will explain later how we really do that in this code. But here you see, for instance, there's a license identifier with a foreign key to license.identifier. So we've got the license table, which is just simply something with identifier and a name. So there are just two identifiers currently. And of course, we have a link in the data set, so there can be it's a bit difficult to see, but let's license ID identifier. Those don't have a license, both of those, but if they would, of course, it would be related to the license table. So yeah, this is all just created by our Python file, and you can look around here if you want to get a bit of a feeling. I think one of the interesting things I want to mention, and that's all for now, is that the data set is an AI asset, for instance. So we have some kind of inheritance sometimes, and also the same goes for organization. For instance, the organization is an agent. There's an inheritance here. what we created here is that we created an agent table and also other tables. So this is actually the table that's implemented. And for the organization, we say that the identifier has a foreign key to the agent.identifier. So this is a bit of a weird way of creating inheritance. We needed to do this for SQL model, otherwise it didn't work. So what we're doing here is for every time we create an organization, we create an agent first, and then we say that the identifier of the organization is the same as the agent.identifier. So if you show the tables again, we see that there's an agent table, which is just a simple table saying the type, which can be organization, for instance, or person, and an identifier. And if we show the create table of, what was it again, of organization, we should see that there's a constraint on the identifier. Primary key is identifier, and here we have it. We have a foreign key constraint from the organization.identifier to the agent.identifier. So this might be a bit too detailed for you for now, but it shows how it works in our database. And you can easily just play around with it again using this script, run database test, and then you can just look around. Thanks.